Good evening, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. I always appreciate your presence. Uh, I have several news updates to share with you for February 4th, 2023. The controversy, the chaos related with Orthodox Church continue. It became very serious. I have several couple of news on that one, on video and also reading. Uh, Dr. Branu Naga, Minister of Ethiopian Education, announced to rebuild about 71 schools in a high standard in Afar and Amhara region with the money the government received from World Bank and the diaspora fund plus other organization. So they are building schools damaged by war in Afar and Amara region. But the the priority is supposed to be Tigray. Tigray was the first bombed, burned, and highly impacted by the 2-year war under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. So why Amara and Afar instead of the one impacted, highly impacted uh, region? So that's a questionable, but it's already announced about 71 schools will be built in a high standard with the money received from World Bank, Diaspora Transfer Fund, and one organization provided money for this one. Oromia is also, highly impacted since Abiy Ahmed came to power since 2018. A lot of students displaced with their family. A lot of schools burned by Fano and Amara militia. So that should also get attention. And the other thing is high level Ethiopian military delegation is in Turkey for a visit. We don't know what the mission, probably to gain more drones or tanks. We don't know, but they are in Turkey, led by General Ababaw Taddese, Deputy Chief of Ethiopian National Defense Force. So this high-level delegation is in Turkey, visiting Turkey and sharing expertise, or we don't know the deal unless it is announced. So they are in Turkey, and I will continue with the other news. So the first one, I will start with a video. The splitter group, the new Synodos, uh, is welcomed in different parts of Oromia and other regions. They are celebrated by believers, by followers, and welcoming them and expressing joy, excitement about these new bishops. So this is a challenge for the establishment, for status quo church, Orthodox church. How can they deal with this, with already recognized by followers, welcomed by followers? Uh, so that's the challenge. That's the challenge. And let's listen to this very short video about this welcoming the new synodos, the new bishop, as they are going to different uh, places, zones, and the establishment is, putting pressure on the government to act to possibly to detain these individuals, these new bishops, and arrest their followers. But this is not happening. This is a new reality they should accept instead of waging a war on these new bishops. Let's listen. This is from OMN, just short one about the welcoming of these new synods or bishops. Then the follow-up is about breaking news in Shashamane and other issues related with confrontation of Orthodox Church. Okay, there we go.
ከተሞች በሚገኙ ከተሞች ለሀገረ ስብከቱ ሊቃነ ጳጳሳት ደማቅ አቀባበል ተደረገ። የአርሲ ሀገረ ስብከት ሊቀ ጳጳስ አቡነ መርቆሪዎስ ወደ አሰላ ሲያመሩ በደረሱበት ቦታ ላይ ሁሉ ምዕመናን ደማቅ አቀባበል አድርገውላቸዋል። በተመሳሳይ በምዕራብ አርሲ ሀገረ ስብከት ሊቀ ጳጳስ አቡነ ጳውሎስ በተለያዩ ከተሞች አቀባበል ተደርጎላቸዋል። በአቀባበሉ ላይ የተገኙት ምዕመናን ለኦኤምኤን በሰጡት አስተያየት ቀኑ ልዩ መሆኑን ተናግረዋል። ለዘመናት ይህችን ቀን ለማየት ሲናፍቁ መቆየታቸውን ገልጸው በአባቶች ጸሎትና ትግል ይህን ማየታቸው እንዳስደስታቸው ተናግረዋል። ከአዲሱ ሲኖዶስና ሊቃነ ጳጳሳት ጎን እንደሚቆሙም አረጋግጠዋል። በተያያዘ ዜና
Never in my life thought I would be through a tornado.
It's devastation.
I walked out in shock. Where do you start?
Okay, I'll come back to that. So it's a very short one, but it shows you that the new bishops are welcomed wherever they go, wherever they want to visit. So they are welcomed by residents, by followers of Orthodox Church and others, plus the traditional Oromo leaders, Abagadas. You saw the decorated horses to welcome this new bishop. So that's a very challenging for the status quo. The status quo. Those who are defending the old Orthodox, the established Orthodox, the ones who are looking for, to see those individuals arrested, trashed, eliminated. But that is not happening. That is a reality. And let's listen to this one. This is now the video from Orthodox Tawahdo media, I think. Let's listen. This is breaking news, it says.
ሰበር ዜና በምዕራብ አርሲ ሻሸመኔ ከተማ በሚገኙ ኦርቶዶክሳውያን ላይ ግድያ፣ ድብደባና አፈና እየተፈጸመ መሆኑን የሀገረ ስብከቱ ሊቀ ጳጳስ ብፁዕ አቡነ ዮሴፍ አስታወቁ።
በሻሸመኔ ላይ ከትናንትና ወዲያ ጀምሮ አንዳንዶችን የሀገረ ስብከት ሰራተኞች ማሰር መፍታት ተጀመረ። አሁን የተወሰኑትን አሰሩ፣ የተወሰኑትን የሉም። ይሄ ከሆነ በኋላ ወጣቱ ደግሞ እንደዚህ በህገወጥ የተሾመ ነገር አናስገባም፣ ትክክል አይደለም በሚለው ቤተክርስቲያኑ እየጠበቀ ወደ ቤተክርስቲያኑ ለመግባት በሚደረግበት ጊዜ አሁን አንድ ሰው እንደሞተ ነው የተነገረኝ። አንድ ሰው ሞቷል። የቆሰሉ አሉ። በእርግጥ ቁጥራቸውን ስለማይታወቅ አሁን በትክክል ለመንገር ስለሚያስቸግር እና አሁን ህዝቡም ችግር ውስጥ ነው ያለው፣ ሰራተኛውም ተበትኖ ነው ያለው እና እንደዚህ አይነቱን ችግር መንግስት ሊታደግ ይገባል፣ ኃይል ሊገባል። ተቋም ተገልብጦ ተቋም ሌላ ተቋም የሚሰራው ነገር ለነገም ታሪክ ጥሩ አይደለም። ማንንም የትኛውንም ትውልድ ሊያንጽና ሊያስተምርም አይችልም። ከምን አንጻር እየተደረገ እንዳለ የሚያደርሱ ብዙዎች ቆም ብለው ሊያስቡበት ይገባል እና ይሄ ነገር ብዙ መዘዝ አለው፣ ችግር ያመጣል። አሁንም ችግሩ በጣም የከፋ እየሆነ ነው እና ስለዚህ ሰው ሙቷል። የፌደራል መንግስት ይሄንን ነገር ገብቶ ህዝቡን ሊታደግ ይገባል። የክልሉ መንግስት በአቋም እስከሚሰራበት እስከሚመስል ድረስ ነው ያለው። በፓትሮል እየተደገፈ ተቋሟ ሰራተኞች እየተወሰኑ እየታሰሩ እታች ያሉ እንኳን ፖሊሶች እንዳያግዙ ተላይ ታዘዘናል በሚል ምክንያት ነው አሁን እየተዘጋጁ ያሉት እና ያ ነገር ትክክል አይደለም። ትናንትናን ብፁዕ አቡነ ያሬድ ታስረዋል። እንደገና ደግሞ ለምንድን ነው የኢትዮጵያ ሚዲያዎች ይህን የማያስተጋቡ? ይሄ ቀን ያልፋል፣ ህዝብ ዝም አይላቸውም። ኢቲቪ ለምን አይናገርም? ዋልታ ለምን አይናገርም? ሌሎች ለምን አይናገሩም? ሰው ሞተ። ስለዚህ ለምንድን ነው የማይጮህ? ለምንድን ነው ተው የማይባል? የፌዴራል መንግስት እነዚህ ህዝቦችን ለምን አይታደግም? አሁንም ህዝቡን ይታደግ፣ ኃላፊነት አለበት። ተቋም እየፈረሰ ነው፣ ተቋምን የመጠበቅ ኃላፊነት አለበት። ሰላም እየደፈረሰ ነው፣ ጸጥታን የማስከበር ኃላፊነት አለበት። መንግስት ነው ከለላ መስጠት መቻል አለበት። ይሄ ነገር ካልሆነ ህዝቡም በጣም በኃይለኛ ሁኔታ ተቆጥቶ ነው ያለው። ወደ ከፋ ሁኔታ ነው ያለው። ወደ ከፋ ሁኔታ እየሄደ ነው ያለው። ወጣቱ እየታሰረ እየተደበደበ የመከራ እያየ ነው ያለው። አቁሙ ሊባል ይገባል። ተው ሊባል ይገባል።
So you see, underage children
ኢትዮጵያዊ መናገር አለበት። ሰው
sticks
መባል
and
አለበት።
stones
መጮህ አለበት። መነገር አለበት። የመናገር የመጮህ መብት አለን።
listening to the
ልጆቻችን
calls
እየሞቱ
or
እኛም ዝም
answering
አንልም።
to
እኛም
the calls
እንሞታለን በዚህ መንገድ።
broadcasted on
ይህንን
different
የማያስቆም ከሆነ የከፋ
media
ነገር
to
ነው የሚሆነው።
defend
የከፋ
the status quo of the
የሚመለስ
church.
ነገርም አይደለም። ልጆቻችን አሁን እየተሰቃዩ ነው ያሉት። በሻሸመኔ ያሉ እንደገና ደግሞ እንደሰማሁት የምን ያህል እርግጠኛ አልሆነም እንጂ የተሾመውን እዚህ ሐዋሳ ሆቴል ነው ደብቀውታሉ የሚባል እና ያ ሁሉ ትክክል ነው ወይ? ይሄ አሁን የሐዋሳ ከተማ ሰላም የሆነ ከተማ ነው። እዚህ አምጥተው በህገወጥ የተሾመ የሚያስቀምጡ ይህን ሰላማዊ ከተማ ለመበጥበጥ ነው ወይ? ይህንን በአጋጣሚ የሚሰሙ የሐዋሳ ከተማ ባለስልጣኖች ይህንን ነገር ከከተማቸው ሰላም የሚያደፈርስ ስለሆነ ተከታትለው ኃላፊነት መውሰድ አለባቸው።
መልካም ብፁዕ አባታችን፣ ምናልባት በዚህች አጋጣሚ ሰዎችን በመግደል በማሰር ክርስቲያኑ ኦርቶዶክሳዊው ወደ ኋላ እንዲሸሽ የማድረግ ነገሮችን ነውና ለማድረግ እየሞከረ ያለው።
ምንም የሚያሸሽ ነገር የለም። ይሄ እኮ አያሸሽም። ይሄ የሚያሸሽ ነገር የለም። ሌላው ሲሞት ሌላውም ይሞታል እንዴ? ማንም ወደ ኋላ የሚል ማን አለ? በእንደዚህ አይነት ነገር ሰው ገሎ ሰው እየሞተ ሰው በአመት በረብሻ የሚደረግ ነገር የለም። የሚመጣ ሰላም የለም። ትክክል አይደለም። ሲኖዶሱም በዚህ ሁኔታ አጠናክሮ የሚቀጥልበት እንጂ ወደ ኋላ የሚልበት ነገር ነው ብዬ አላስብም። ይሄ ነገር ጥሩ አይደለም። በጉልበት የሚደረግ ነገር ጥሩ አይደለም። ትክክል አይደለም። እኔ አሁን ክልል መንግስት ላይ ነው ይሄ ይሆን ያለ። የፌዴራል መንግስት ይመለከተዋል። ህዝቡን ያገኝ ይጠብቅ። ለህዝቡ ከለላ ይስጥ። አገር
Cold winter weather's here, so why feel it inside your own home and in your wallet? USA Insulation's premium injection foam fills every crevice of your...
At least 13 Palestinians have been...
Okay, we'll come back to this one, the Palestinian-Israeli issue, which is a burning issue. So that's the continued chaos in relation to the Orthodox Church. Now, Abuna Yosef announced the death of one individual and the injury of several. That means now is becoming in a very serious stage now. And he is also calling on followers to continue sacrificing for the church, defending the church. So that's the situation. And he's also telling us that new bishops are hiding in hotel in Hawassa, protected by security forces. So he's blaming the government. He's blaming the local government officials. He's blaming the media for not reporting. Fana, Walta, Ethiopia Broadcasting Corporation. Nobody's saying anything, so they are blaming. So they are using the church media to announce their plan to call for the jihad to defend the status quo. And, this is a very tough move. As I said, these 25 new bishops are supported by Orthodox believers, followers, plus other Oromos. So that's a challenge. As long as they have support, the old Orthodox, the status quo, must figure out a different way to deal with these people. Negotiation, instead of waging a war of propaganda and waging a war of calling on followers to arm themselves like teenagers and underage children with a stick and stones. This is going to take us to a very bad scenario. More life could be lost. So the status quo, I know they are calling on the global Orthodox followers, to defend the church by all means, through demonstrations, through fundraising, through everything, lobbying. But what is the end point? How can you bring the new bishops to the table and figure out how to solve this serious problem? This is very, very dangerous problem. Instead of telling the followers not to allow these new bishops to go to the church, protecting the church from these individuals, defending the compound, trashing them, waging a war on them. This strategy will not work. They should devise a different method to settle this very serious issue. So that's my take. Let's continue. This is also from Orthodox Synod. The following 4 or 5 or 4 from Addis Standard. Orthodox Synod declares faithful to wear black for fast of Nineveh to protest against illegal group, under the quotation. Still they call them illegal group. The Holy Synod of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, EOTC, in Addis Ababa has declared the faithful to observe the upcoming 3 days of fast of Nineveh, which will be observed from Monday 6 to Wednesday 8 February, by wearing black to protest against what it said is a government-supported coup attempt to overthrow the Holy Synod by the illegal group. On the occasion of the fast of Nineveh, Christians all over the world wear only black clothes, take vows in fasting and prayer by being present in the premises of the church. We wear black clothes to express perseverance in suffering, the statement said. In declaring the 3 days prayers by wearing black, the Synod said that despite its decision to excommunicate the breakaway archbishops and their nominee episcopate, who now refer to themselves as Holy Synod of Oromia and the nations and the nationalities, they are unable to refrain from their actions, and with the help of the government forces, they are doing great damage by forcibly invading and breaking the pontificates and office administered by the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church. The Synod also accused the government that instead of enforcing the law, the government failed to uphold the law and the rights of the church by giving support to illegal groups. So the Holy Synod understood that it is important to pray and make vows to our all-powerful God. On their 1 February, the Synod issued ultimatum to the government to carry out the responsibilities assigned by the Constitution by upholding the institutional supremacy of the Church, the rights and interests given to it by law, and by giving appropriate correction to the illegal actions by the breakaway archbishops, and alternatively threatened to call for a worldwide protest if corrective measures were not to be taken. Regardless of the continued protest by the Holy Synod in Addis Ababa, however, the breakaway archbishops have continued dispatching their 25 nominee episcopate to different dioceses in Oromia regional state. Reports indicate that Abuna Paulos, the newly nominated episcopate by the breakaway archbishop for the West RC diocese, will be traveling to the city of Shashamane over the weekend. In a statement it issued yesterday, the Holy Synod of Oromia and the nation and the nationality said that starting this weekend, its ongoing apostolic journey will continue in the remaining areas of Oromia and other dioceses located in the southern regional state. Last weekend, 2 nominee episcopates assigned to West Wallagga and Kellam Wallagga diocese were dispatched and have received overwhelming public welcome from the faithful both in the respective destination and on their roads, according to the spokesperson. So that's the reality. If the public welcome them, what the status quo can do? How can the status quo can resolve this matter? This is again from Addis Standard. Amid growing concern on delay, inadequate service to restoration, Premier meets Tigrayan negotiating team promises speedy process. The peace negotiating team of the federal government and the Tigray region have met in the presence of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for the first time and discussed the progress of the implementation of the peace agreement signed between the two in November last year. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, along with other higher officials, including Deputy Prime Minister Demek Emekonnen, met face-to-face with the Grand Delegation that include, among others, Getachew Reda, Lieutenant General Tzadkan Gebretensai, and General Taddese Warede at Halala Kela, Dauro Zone in Southern Nationalities and the People's Regional State, SNNP, for the first time since the disharmony between the federal government and regional authorities that led to the bloody war in northern Ethiopia. According to the official dispatch on the meeting, the two sides discussed the progress of the implementation of the peace deal for 2 days. The unexpected meeting happened amid growing concerns about delayed and inadequate basic service restoration in the Tigray region, including banking, road transport, and telecommunications. Although some progress has been seen in the resumption of air travel, opening up of banking services, and the restoration of telecommunications in the Tigray region, which has been under a de facto blockade for 2 years, the progress has been slow, and the resumed service remain inadequate as opposed to the massive needs. Even in the area of humanitarian aid, where a significant progress has been achieved since the peace deal was struck, the United Nations said on 2nd February that some packets remained that have not yet been accessed in the delivery of aid, which stands at more than 127,000 tons of food, reaching more than 3.8 million people. Redwan Hussein, National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister, told the state broadcaster since their meeting Pretoria and then the two meetings in Nairobi, the two parties have been exerting extra effort to show commitment and build trust at all levels and creating transparency in the peace agreement without necessarily sticking only to the details of the peace agreement. The Prime Minister has come with a group of other leaders to see the situation where we have reached, and this is similar to what we did last time when we went to Mekelle, which boosts confidence in both sides, he added. According to Ridwan, the two parties have taken into account the situation in Tigray and Ethiopia at the center of their responsibility, and to jointly shoulder the price of the war has costed the country. Getachew Reda from the Tigray delegation also told the state broadcaster that the two teams have discussed improvement in restoring basic services since the peace deal and agreed to work on the remaining issues. He said the people of Tigray have been in great trouble for the past 2.5 years. It has been without basic services and humanitarian aid. Services like telephone, air transport, etc. have only been restored recently, yet there are serious shortcomings to these services. Banks have opened, but due to serious shortage of cash, they have not been given services. So we have discussed on ways of improving all this. He said that they had discussions on the ways in which other services are strengthened and to enable the people of Tigray return to their normal lives after all the sufferings they endured. There is ongoing transition in the Tigray region that aims to resolve political issues with regard to the agreement and that takes into account the political need to the Tigrayan people and in a way that particularly address and resolve once and for all the issues that have led to the war and in a way that meets the aspiration of the Tigrayan people, Getachew Reda said. On 2nd February, the US said over the past 3 months since the signing of the agreement, important progress by the parties in implementing key aspects of the agreement have been seen, including the steady and growing delivery of humanitarian aid, initial steps in discussions about a transitional justice process, the ongoing restoration of services, electricity, telecommunications, banking, significant turnover of heavy weapons, and in the past couple of weeks, a pullback of Eritrean forces from the Tigray region. So this is encouraging sign. Is giving hope for Tigrayans who have impacted or who have been suffering since 2020, almost more than 2 years. So this is meeting, building confidence, and increasing humanitarian aid and opening up all basic service. These are encouraging signs. But they are not talking about accountability. Even the next news is undermining that effort by the government of Ethiopia. Let me see what it says. Ethiopia asks U.S. support to terminate mandate of United Nations human rights expert. See, that is Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and his prosperity team. They want to terminate the UN investigation the UN investigation. They tried multiple times, but they failed. Now they are asking the United States to help. Let me read. Ethiopia has asked the United States to support its bid in terminating the mandate of the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia, IIHREE. This was stated during a courtesy call by Ambassador Tracy Ann Jacobson, charge d'affaires at the U.S. Embassy in Ethiopia, to Ambassador Misganu Arga, State Minister at the Minister of Foreign Affairs, on 2nd February, according to the ministry. During the discussion, Ambassador Misganu commended the U.S. for its support for the AU-led Pretoria peace deal between the Ethiopian government and the TPLF, and stated that the government is fully committed to implementing the terms of the peace deal. He called on the United States to provide support for the reconstruction and the rehabilitation efforts, reiterating Ethiopia's commitment to address the issues of human rights violations via the transitional justice system. Ambassador Misganu asked the United States to support Ethiopia's bid in terminating the mandate of the highly politicized International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia. Ministry of Foreign Affairs dispatch reads. In December last year, Ethiopia's draft resolution requesting the fifth Committee of the UN General Assembly to not approve any resources for the International Commission of Human Rights Experts on Ethiopia was rejected by a vote of 71 against 32 in favor, whereas 50 members stated abstained the vote. It was the second failed attempt by Ethiopia to have UN's General Assembly to defund resources for the UN rights experts who were appointed by the UN to investigate war-related human rights abuses in Ethiopia. After its opposition to the formation of IIHREE, in April last year, the Ethiopian government voted to block the UN funding for it unsuccessfully. It is recalled that IIHREE's first report to the UN Human Rights Council, presented in September last year on its initial findings of Ethiopia's war, covering the hostilities in Tigray and the Amara regions, concluded that there are reasonable grounds to believe that violations such as extrajudicial killings, rape, sexual violence, and starvation of the civilian population as a method of warfare have been committed in Ethiopia since 3rd November 2020, and that there were reasonable grounds to believe that in several instances these violations amount to war crimes and crimes against humanity. However, since the onset of its establishment by the Geneva-based UN Human Rights Council on 17 December 2021, Ethiopia insisted it was established for a political purposes and has had an easy relationship with it, once accusing it of having weaponizing human rights for political pressure. The United States government and the EU, however, continued insisting on accountability for human rights violations and abuses, as well as implementation of transitional justice as part of the full implementation of the Pretoria Agreement. On 22nd December, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the U.S. was focused on making sure that it can get independent human rights monitors into Tigray to verify that there are no ongoing atrocities, even as we are looking for accountability for what has already taken place. During the latest U.S. State Department press briefing held yesterday, Ned Price, Department spokesperson, said that the U.S. commends the parties for the commitment to the cessation of hostilities agreement and encourage continued implementation, including ensuring the protection of civilians through international human rights monitoring, as well as following through on accountability for human rights abuses and transitional justice. So Ethiopia is lobbying, highly concerned about this investigation and lobbying for the United States now, since they signed a peace deal and getting appreciation from the United States. Maybe the United States might change its stand and might support this position. We don't know. We don't know. But officially now, that is the issue. Ethiopia asking United States to abandon this United Nations security human rights experts, because they don't want accountability for almost more than 500,000 people died. The rape, the looting, the destruction carried out by Ethiopian federal forces, by Amara militia, Fano militia, Eritreans. They just want to go for free because they signed a peace deal. And talking about transitional justice maybe carried out in Ethiopia. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think the United States and the European Union will allow this to happen. This is Somali Regional Cabinet approved names of months written in Somali language. The Somali Regional State Government Cabinet has approved names of the 12 months written in Somali language, the region's official working language. According to the newly adopted names of the 12 months written in Somali language will be used across all schools and government organizations throughout the region, according to regional media. The decision, which is hailed as a significant step in the development of the Somali language, was made after deliberating on a study conducted by scholars from and outside the region on Somali equivalent names, days, months, and years. So far, the regional state was using English names of months for its official correspondence. So the following are the names of months in Somali and their corresponding translation in English. But I don't know how to pronounce them, but they have 12 months with Somali language. So from using English name for their months, now they are using Somali language. So that's a huge change. For the details of this, you can check Addis standard and how to pronounce, but I can see this. It says Darabli, like January, Rare, February, Thor, March, Dugalto, April, Michad, May, Agali, June, Afagali, July, Naf, August, Kodixin, September, Dirir, October, Gudba, November, December. So apologies for maybe mispronouncing, but the reality is they have their own names for the 12 months. So now they are not using English. This is tension between the United States and Sudan about one guy released. Let me read. U.S. summon Sudanese U.S. summoned Sudanese ambassador to protest the release of USAID employees killer. The United States summoned the Sudanese ambassador to protest the release of Abdul Rauf Abu Zaid, an Islamist militant who killed USAID employees on January 2008. The Supreme Court in Khartoum ordered the release of a Sudanese who killed a U.S. diplomat, John Granville, and a Sudanese worker, Abdul Rahman Abbas. His release on January 30 took place after a letter to the head of the Sovereign Council and the Chief Justice to announce that he would stage a hunger strike to protest psychological abuse, neglect, and humiliation in prison. Ned Price, State Department spokesperson, on Thursday reiterated strong condemnation of Abu Zaid's release and again dismissed claims that the Granville family had extended forgiveness. We call on the Sudanese government to exercise all available legal means to reverse this decision and to re-arrest Abu Zaid, Ned said. Today we convoke the Sudanese ambassador to the United States. In addition, our ambassador in Sudan, John Godfrey, is engaging Sudanese officials at the highest level on this issue, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary Peter Lord is heading next week to Khartoum, where he will also take up this critical issue to demand action, he stressed. Abu Zaid's family told Sudan Tribune that the judge decided on his release after consulting the Foreign Ministry, which approved the step, saying that Sudan paid compensation to the Granville family within the framework of the 2020 deal that led to removing Sudan from the U.S. terror blacklist. The 2020 US-Sudan bilateral settlement of legal claims didn't address Abu Zaid's imprisonment or his sentence, repeated the diplomat. It is our contention that the perpetrator of this horrific terrorist attack should remain behind bars, he asserted. In Khartoum, the Foreign Ministry didn't react to the statement of the U.S. diplomats condemning Abu Zaid's release. Okay, the last one for today's reading. Assistant Secretary Fees travel to South Africa, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. This is State Department. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Mali Fee will travel to South Africa, Nigeria, and Ethiopia, February 5 to 19. In South Africa, Assistant Secretary Fee will participate in the University Partnership Initiative Summit at the Future Africa campus of the University of Pretoria to show U.S. support for advancing higher education across the continent of Africa. In addition, she will meet with South African leaders in politics, business, and civil society. In Lagos and Abuja, Assistant Secretary Fee will engage civil society, youth, the private sector, religious leaders, election officials, political party leaders, and government representatives. Her visit will underscore the U.S. commitment to supporting free and fair elections in February and March that are conducted peacefully. In Ethiopia, Assistant Secretary Fee will be joined by Ambassador Johnny Carson, the Special Presidential Representative for U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit implementation, and other U.S. officials. Their travel will coincide with the African Union AU Summit and focus on follow-up to U.S. commitment. They will meet with heads of state and ministers attending the summit. This visit is an example of U.S. action to deepen and expand our partnership with Africans. Okay, thank you. Oh no, it's not over. Okay, it's not over. Okay, with African governments, businesses, and publics to meet the shared challenge and opportunities of our era. The United States reaffirms the value of a strong African Union and welcomes the AU's leadership on the global stage. We are proud of our dynamic partnership with the AU, its member states, and the people of Africa. We are dedicated to working together to advance our shared global priorities to foster openness and open societies, deliver democratic and security dividends, promote pandemic recovery and economic opportunities, and support conservation, climate adaptation, and a just energy transition. That's the last one for today. Let's finish up with 2 videos I chose for you for today's update. Thank you again.
Ended in the latest raid in the occupied West Bank. Israeli forces targeted the Akbat Jabba refugee camp. The nearby city of Jericho has been closed off since last week after a shooting in an illegal Israeli settlement. At least 18 Palestinians have been arrested since the operation began.
They went in and didn't have a specific house in mind. They targeted the whole camp. They started from the entrance of the camp and they continued their ill-doing inside. Then they left. And it's in this mess houses were targeted, as if the residents were criminals while they were asleep in their houses, civilians who have nothing to do with the incident.
Akbat Jabba is one of 19 Palestinian refugee camps in the occupied West Bank. More than 8,000 people live in an area of under 2 square kilometres. For more on this, let's cross live to Bernard Smith. He's in Ramallah for us. Bernard, tell us why Israeli forces have targeted this particular camp.
Laura, they've had Jericho and the edge of Jericho, this camp's just on the edge of that city, under lockdown for the past week because they've been looking for suspects in connection with this drive-by shooting that was near an Israeli settlement just over a week ago. So they've been looking for the suspects, and it seems that this morning the Israeli military said they identified a property in this camp where they believed the suspects were, and so they went in to get them. They hit the building with an anti-tank missile. The people inside surrendered, and in total are about 10 people, we think, arrested. And actually all but 2 of those people have now been released. It's not clear yet if the Israeli military have got the particular individuals they're looking for, because Jericho still remains locked down, so it's very hard to come and go out of that city. Who's subject to very thorough searches, so everybody's there is still sort of kept locked in. until the Israeli military have found who they're looking for. But this is just the latest of what's been a very violent month, beginning of the year in the occupied West Bank. 36 Palestinians killed so far in Israeli operations, 6 Jewish citizen Israeli Jews and 1 Ukrainian killed in an attack near a synagogue in East Jerusalem. All of this ramping up the tension and the pressure here in the occupied West Bank, particularly now that we have this far-right Israeli government in charge, where there are ministers in that government who have settlers as their constituents, who are determined to expand the settlement project in the occupied West Bank and make life much harder for the Palestinians than it already is.
Indeed. Bernard, thanks very much for joining us there from Ramallah.
Okay, I think one more.
They don't look right.
Representative IIhan Umar.
Yeah, well, I should have booked our hotel on Kaya.
My leadership and voice will not be diminished if I am not on this committee for one term. My voice will get louder and stronger, and my leadership will be celebrated around the world as it has been.
Today's resolution, as it relates to Representative Omar, details 6 statements she made as a sitting member of Congress that under the totality of the circumstances disqualify her from serving on the Committee on Foreign Affairs.
Don't tell me this is about consistency. Don't tell me that this is about a condemnation of anti-Semitic remarks when you have a member of the Republican caucus who has talked about Jewish space lasers and an entire amount of tropes and also elevated her to some of the highest committee assignments in this body. This is about targeting women of color in the United States of America. Don't tell me, because I didn't get a single apology.
Time has expired.
When my life was threatened.
The representative can say whatever the heck she wants. But we don't have to accept it or embrace it. Individuals who hold such hateful views should rightly be barred from that type of committee.
This institution is better because of her leadership, and the Foreign Affairs Committee benefits from her perspective. So let's talk about what's really happening. Republicans are waging a blatantly Islamophobic and racist attack on Congresswoman Omar. And I've said it before, I will say it again. The white supremacy happening is unbelievable. This is despicable.
We're not removing her from other committees. We just do not believe when it comes to foreign affairs, especially the responsibility of that position around the world with the comments that you make. She shouldn't serve
there. Okay. So that is IIhan Umar, representative from Minnesota, removed from Foreign Affairs Committee by the Republicans. That's why we say election has consequences. Now the Republicans has the majority in the House. They can do whatever they want to do. They can remove you from committee. They can have their own agenda. So this is a time for them, at least for 2 years. They removed her, and they removed Adam Schiff and others, top Democrat fighters who worked hard for impeachment, Trump impeachment. So the condition is a tough one. And she's a fighter. She's a fighter. She's a real fighter, representing our voice, but they silenced her. So That's a tough one. And she talked about Israel, how genocide is happening there, South African style situation, and no ending cycle of violence over there, and expansion, occupation of Palestinian lands. There is a talk of two-state solution never been materialized. They just keep talking, but the violence will continue, death and the destruction will continue, and the occupation of the Palestinians' land will continue. That's the situation. And if you are dare to speak against such Israeli oppression, you cannot be elected for any office in the United States. They have strong lobby, strong supporters, strong financial supporters. That's the challenge. That's the challenge. So let me conclude by saying this. The status quo of Orthodox Church, they have to figure out how to settle this issue instead of calling for complete war in that country, in Ethiopia. They should figure out a smooth way to deal with this established new synod. That's the best way. And instead of calling on believers to seal or conceal the church from this new synod, new bishops, they should sit down, talk to each other, figure out, and settle the matter peacefully. Ethiopia is already under so many challenges. The war in Oromia continue. The war in Tigray for now is settled, but the suffering, the effect of the war continue. So that's my take. Thank you for joining me. I will be back with other news update. Be safe. So long, everyone. Probably I will come back tomorrow with the DC protest and the Orthodox called global protest against the new synod. So we'll see. Thank you. Bye-bye.